In previous lessons, we've come up with a great idea. We've come up with a great solution to our client's problem. Our idea is smart, it's strategic, it's insightful, and we fully understand how it will come to life. We understand the visual world, the techniques that we're going to be using, all of that. So now what we need to do is we need to get our client to understand all of that and to buy off on it. And the first step in doing that is what we'll cover in this lesson, which is establishing your credentials, establishing why you're the person who will solve their problem, who has this great idea, and will bring it to life in a beautiful way. Let's begin. So we establish our credentials. Presentations, be them formal or casual, need to be compelling. If you're lucky, you will have your client's full attention at the start. If not, you're going to have to take it. To do that, we create a narrative that introduces us as an expert in our field, passionate about the subject, and connected to ourselves in a way that feels like a secret. The best way to hold people's attention is with stories. Facts, figures, talking about ideas as abstract concepts, they're largely boring. Stories about people, they tend to be more intriguing. This is why gossip magazines make wild amounts of money. People believe experts more than they believe non-experts. If you've worked with big names, won prestigious awards, or done something similar to the brief, find tactful ways to weave this into your narrative. People are also intrigued by people who are passionate about a given subject. If you're a fan of the client's product, the world they operate in, or if you always wanted to make something like what you're pitching, let them know. This will engender them to you and let them know you're not a hired gun, but you're actually in the target audience. The next way we can look to establish our credentials is with personal stories. People are always interested in personal stories. People are always interested in secrets. This is drafting off the previous point, but if you can connect some sort of very personal story as to why you're passionate about this work, use it. For example, let's say you're super excited to make a commercial for McDonald's because you have a great childhood memory of going there after soccer games. That's the sort of thing that will get clients from McDonald's to sort of sit forward and say, okay, this person understands what we're trying to do at McDonald's with every meal that we sell. You should also be very concise as you establish your credentials. Be short and be sweet. No one wants to spend a long time listening to you monologue and just go on and on and on. Being concise as you establish any of the points that we've just talked about will really help to sort of nail that you are someone who is perfect for this job, perfect to advise your client on how they should present themselves. And then you can move on to the exciting thing for them, which is going to be your ideas and your visions and your insight. The last thing is that you want to make sure that you bring a lot of honesty. So we've talked about expertise, we've talked about passion, we've talked about using personal stories to be able to sell why you're the right person for this, to work with these people. But here's the thing, if you're pitching to the NFL, there's a good chance that maybe you've never played football, you've never watched football, you have no passion for the sport, and you have no real sort of personal connection to the sport. If that's the case, that's fine. You can always try to find a sort of sideways route in and say, maybe you've never played NFL football, you never liked it, you never made a football commercial, but maybe you've made some of the best commercials in soccer or volleyball or whatever else. That's a sideway in. But the thing you never want to do is you never want to lie. Because the problem with lying is that a lot of times you can get the lie off fairly seamlessly and it seems innocuous enough and you won their trust. Everything's great. But when you get caught in that lie, you totally destroy all trust. If you come into a meeting and you say, hey, the sky is blue, they'll say, I don't know about that. I remember when you lied about how you like football. So again, let's always be honest as we try to tell these stories that establish our credentials. Because if you're talking to the NFL and you mix up Joe Montana, Joe Burrow, or Joe Namath, you're gonna sink your entire pitch. So now that we've talked about how to establish our credentials, we'll get into our examples. With these examples, I'm gonna establish credentials in a very hypothetical way. You're gonna have to do this for yourself, tailor it to who you are, and obviously tailor it to the specific thing you're trying to sell. These are just going to be very, very hypothetical examples, but I'll show you how the different ways in that I established just a little bit earlier can be used in these situations. Let's go into the rapper. We have this insight that our rapper has sampled old soul records, and the soul records are sweet and lovey and all of that. This is going to be our rapper's love letter to criminality. That's where we are. We know the deal on this. So here's different ways to establish our credentials. We could show expertise as a cover designer. If we've designed tons of record covers for all different types of artists, we have an expertise in what gets people attracted to an album cover. We may never have done anything with rap. We may not know rap. We may not like rap, but we know how to work in the medium of the album cover. We could show expertise in rap. So you've never designed an album cover, but you know rap inside and out. You know this rapper's first album, the third album, whatever he did, you already know that. So you can say, hey, I'm an expert in rap of all sort. I've been listening to the beginning. I know all the major players, old school, deep cuts, all of that sort of stuff. We could establish a passion for the artist's work. Here, if you are a super fan of that specific artist, you could bring that to the table and say, hey, because I know you, I know the journey you've been on, I know where you started, I know your backstory, your biography, all of that. I'm the perfect person to make this cover for you because I understand exactly who you are as an artist. You could show a passion for the artist's influence, especially when you're dealing with individuals. So if you're working with an artist, a musician, a good way to go about getting them to understand that you get who they are and that you're the perfect person to help them represent themselves is that if you can talk about the things that they are influenced by, the things that they love and the things that they take influence from. So if you are working with this rapper and maybe you're not super familiar with the rapper's work, but you know the work of the rapper that they love and you know the style of music that they think is the greatest, and you can say, hey, I connect with that and I connect with you on that. That's a great way to show your credentials that you're the right person to help them craft their image. Lastly, you could tell a personal story connecting to any of the above, right? If you have a story about how you got into graphic design because when you were 10 years old, you looked at a Pink Floyd record cover and you just stared at it for hours and you're like, I need to be the person who makes things like that. Great. That's a beautiful way in. If you could tell a story about how, the first experience you ever had with art at all was going to a rap show and how it changed your life, there you go. That's a way in. You had to tell a story about the artist's work. Maybe, you and your wife met at one of his early concerts. There you go. If you wanted to show a passion for the artist's influence and you were like, hey, I have a tattoo of this band that you really love them. I have a tattoo of them and I've read somewhere that you also have the same thing. That's another way in. Personal stories always will be a great way of selling your credentials and getting people to understand that this is more than a job for you, that this is something that you're actually super interested in and very qualified to talk about. Now we move to the running shoe. Life is like an endurance race. It's about perseverance, pacing, and focus. We're all runners already. That's where we are with running shoe. We can establish expertise in sportswear, footwear, or running spaces. Obviously, this is an easy way in. If you've already done a lot of work in running or footwear or sportswear even, you have a great inroad as to why you are the right choice to make this sort of ad and help these people sell their product. You could show a passion for running. If you yourself are a marathoner, or even if you were just I run once a week, and that's great. You have a way in to connect with now the audience that you're trying to sell to. You could show a passion for exercise in general. So let's say you don't really run, but you used to play college football, or you used to play soccer in the academy league, or whatever it is. If you have an athletic background, you can say, hey, I understand what it's like to grind. I understand what it's like to put myself out there. I understand what it's like to try something new and know how long it's going to take you to get good at it. Any sort of sport you pick, anything, if you have a real passion for it, that's a great way in to show your expertise. You can show a passion for sports advertising and say, hey, listen, I've never made a running commercial before in my life, but I live and die for commercials about sports. There's just something really exciting about seeing people in peak physical condition, seeing people push themselves beyond their limits and doing all of that in like 30 or 60 seconds. And you're just like very inspired. You just want to jump off the couch and run through a wall after you see some of the great sports advertising of all time. That's another great way to show that you're the right person to do this. You can show a passion for footwear. Let's just say maybe you don't like sports that much. You don't run, you don't do anything, you sit on the couch all the time, but you're on StockX or Grailed every day looking at the latest new sneakers, new colorways, new drops, this, that, the other. You're the wildest sneakerhead. That's a great way to get into it because you love the thing that they make. And you're going to love the thing that they make, not so much for the use of it, but for the beauty of it, for the world that sneakers live in. You're connected to that. You're a great person to make a commercial for a running shoe. And lastly, again, tell a personal story of someone you know who is a runner. Personal stories will always go over well. So if you never have run anything, but your girlfriend or your boyfriend ran the New York City Marathon, or they ran a half marathon, or they were training for a marathon, then they got hurt and they couldn't get into it. These are all great stories to set up that you understand the mind of a runner. You understand the audience that they're trying to sell to. You understand how your boyfriend had to wake up every morning at 6 a.m. so he could run before he went to work, or how you guys were supposed to go out on Friday night, but his feet were so sore because he had just run 15 miles beforehand, and so you just stayed in and ordered pizza instead. These are the type of things that people who are going to be selling running shoes are going to be like, yes, we've hired the right person. They know what they're talking about. Let's work with them and let's trust them on what they have to say. And so let's look at a real world example real quickly. This was done for the NBA as a client, and it was for a campaign called That's Game. The brief here was to remind people why the NBA is a league that they should tune into on a regular basis. Even though there's a lot of games, NBA season, it's fairly long, playoffs are long, you would think that each game was inconsequential. It is just a thing that happens. But the NBA is actually something much more than that. It's very magical and it's super connected to culture. So the brief was, how do we really get people to understand that the NBA is a part of their life already and should continue to be a part of their life? And if they want that thing in their life and they want to get the most out of it, they should tune into a random game on a Tuesday night. And they should always check out SportsCenter or the newspaper or websites or whatever to see what is happening in this sort of great soap opera. That was the brief. And as I approached this client, the NBA, they know all the things to know about basketball. I had to figure out a way to express my credentials, explain why I was the type of person they should trust and they should listen to. I've never played in the NBA. I've never done anything like that, but I am still the person they should listen to. And to be honest, I've never played basketball beyond a pickup level. I'm not particularly good. I'm not a basketball fan to the point of fantasy leagues, following stats to super close nature or anything like that. But what I do have is a lifelong connection to the sport. My mother played basketball avidly. Her trophies are in my house now. I can think about many moments throughout my life where basketball, not just in the background, but it's sort of a key actor in my memory of the world. So one time she was very late to pick me up from a school trip because the Knicks had made the Eastern Conference Finals and the game had gone into overtime. And so she was super late to pick me up, and I'm standing out there in front of the school and I'm like, "Where's mom?" And she pulls up and she's like, "Honey, I'm sorry. Game went into overtime. I had to see the Knicks win." I still hate the Knicks to this day because of that. But I understand the love, the obsession with the game that she had, and it was passed down to me. And that's one random way my life is connected to the NBA. But ultimately, everyone's life is connected to this sport. It's in culture, it's in music, it's in fashion, it's in damn near every playground and gym. It's in your office right now as someone yells Kobe while they shoot a piece of trash into a wastebasket. And ultimately, that's what makes the NBA great, and that's game. So let's take a look at the spot.
This is the game of basketball. Poetry in motion. Science fighting art. Legend burned into imagination. This game takes everything you give and gives back even more. These are the lines and colors of history, where no two pictures are the same. This is a singular moment becoming a blueprint. Selflessness recognized. The fight of a lifetime, and a family that chooses you. This thing we do, we follow. It breaks hearts, bends minds, and drops jaws. And it keeps us wanting more long after the buzzer. That's devotion. That's bigger than basketball. That's game.
So now we've established our credentials. And our goal here is to get our client to understand that we have a connection to their product. And what we've done by establishing our credentials is making that connection very explicit and authentic. The thing I cannot stress enough is that when you establish your credentials, you must be authentic. You cannot lie. Because if you lie, ultimately you will probably be found out, and then all of the trust will be lost, and your client will not believe anything you have to say about anything. In the next lesson, we're going to introduce the world that the client's product lives in. And what we're going to do there is paint a picture for them to help them understand how we see their product. It's going to be hard, but I have faith in you that you can do this.